After damning politicians uphill and down dale for many years as rogues, vagabonds, frauds, and scoundrels, I sometimes suspected, like everyone else, I often expect too much of them. Though faith and confidence are surely more or less foreign to my nature, I not infrequently find myself looking them to be able, diligent, candid, and even honest. Plainly enough, that is too large an order, as anyone must realize who reflects upon the manner in which they reach public office. They seldom, if ever, get there by merit alone, at least in democratic states. Sometimes, to be sure, it happens, but only by a kind of miracle. They are chosen normally for quite different reasons, the chief of which is simply their power to impress and enchant the intellectually underprivileged. It is a talent, like any other, and when it is exercised by a radio crooner, a movie actor, or a bishop, it even takes on a certain austere and sorry respectability. But it is obviously not identical with the capacity for the intricate problems of statecraft. Those problems demand for their solution, when they are soluble at all, which is not often, a high degree of technical proficiency, and with it, there should go an adamantine kind of integrity, for the temptations of a public official are almost as cruel as those of a glamour girl or a dipsomaniac. But we train a man for facing them not by locking him up in a monastery and stuffing him with wisdom and virtue, but by turning him loose on the stump. If he is a smart and enterprising fellow, which he usually is, he quickly discovers there that hooey pleases the boobs a great deal more than sense. Indeed, he finds that sense really disquiets and alarms them, that it makes them at best intolerably uncomfortable, just as a tight collar makes them uncomfortable, or a speck of dust in the eye, or the thought of hell. The truth, to the overwhelming majority of mankind, is indistinguishable from a headache. After trying a few shots of it on his customers, the larval statesman concludes, sadly, that it must hurt them. And after that, he taps a more humane keg. And in a little while, the whole audience is singing, "Glory, glory, hallelujah." And when the returns come in, the candidate is on his way to the White House. I hope no one will mistake this brief account of the political process under democracy for exaggeration. It is almost literally true. I do not mean to argue, remember, that all politicians are villains, in the sense that a burglar, a child stealer, or a Darwinian are villains. Far from it. Many of them, in their private characters, are very charming persons. And I have known plenty that I trust with my diamonds, my daughter, or my liberty, if I had any such things. I happen to be acquainted to some extent with nearly all the gentlemen, both Democrats and Republicans, who are currently itching for the presidency, including the present incumbent. And I testify freely that they are all pleasant fellows with qualities above rather than below the common. The worst of them is a great deal better company than most generals in the army, or writers of murder mysteries, or astrophysicists. And the best is a really superior and wholly delightful man, full of sound knowledge, competent and prudent, frank and enterprising, and quite as honest as any American can be without being clapped into a madhouse. Don't ask me what his name is, for I am not in politics. I can only tell you that he has been in public life a long while and has not been caught yet. Some years ago, I accompanied a candidate for the presidency on his campaign tour. He was, like all such rascals, an amusing fellow. And I came to like him very much. His speeches at the start were full of fire. He was going to save the country from all the stupendous frauds and rivals from all the stupendous frauds and false pretenses of his rival. Every time that rival offered to rescue another million of poor fish from the neglects and oversights of God, he howled his derision from the back platform of his train. I noticed at once these blasts of common sense got very little applause. And after a while, the candidate began to notice it too. Worse, he began to get word from his spies on the train of his rival that the rival was wowing them, panicking them, laying them in the aisles. He lost his intelligent manner and became something you could hardly distinguish from an idealist. Instead of mocking, he began to promise. And in a little while, he was promising everything that his rival was promising, and a good deal more. One night, out in the Bible country, after the hullabaloo of the day was over, I went into his private car along with another newspaper reporter, and we sat down to gabble with him. This other reporter, a faithful member of the candidate's own party, began to upbraid him, at first very gently, for letting off so much hokum. What did he mean by making promises that no human being on this earth and not many of the angels in heaven could ever hope to carry out? Did he honestly think that farmers as a body would ever see all their rosy dreams come true, or that sharecroppers in their lower ranks would ever be more than a hop, skip, and a jump from starvation? The candidate thought a while, took a long swallow of the coffin varnish he carried around with him, and then replied that the answer in every case was no. He was well aware, he said, that the plight of the farmers was intrinsically hopeless and would probably continue to be so, despite doles from the Treasury for century to come. He had no notion that anything could be done about it by merely human means, and certainly not by political means. It would take a new Moses and a whole series of miracles. But you forget, Mr. Blank, he concluded sadly, that our agreement in the premises must remain purely personal. You are not a candidate for the President of the United States. I am. As we left, his interlocutor, a gentleman grown gray in Washington and long ago lost to every decency, pointed to the moral of the episode. In politics, he said, man must learn to rise above principle. Then he drove it in with another. When the water reaches the upper deck, he said, follow the rats. Thank you.